basically because I'm inside, that's why I'm putting on like this for today. But it's getting colder and colder each day.
I'm sure.
Yeah, so how are you doing? How is South Africa?
I'm good, thanks. Things are good, yeah, as good as can be, better than they are in other parts of Africa, so I can't complain.
I see, I see. Thank you for joining us tonight. Our viewers, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live in the studio. We are going to be handling a very exciting topic tonight with my sister and co-host Linda Tilly, and we shall be talking today about democracy in Africa, and we shall be putting emphasis on democracy, electoral laws, and human rights status in Africa. And we are going to be looking at Zambia and Sierra Leone. So tonight, with my co-host, we shall be handling these two countries, looking into what is happening in these two great nations of Africa, Zambia and Sierra Leone. And we shall be hosting gentlemen from the two countries. We shall be having Emmanuel Mambu, who is a human rights activist based in Sierra Leone. We shall also be having Fidelis Ngoma, who is a policy and political analyst based in Zambia, but also shall be having McDonald Chipenzi, who is an election and governance expert in Zambia. So, as we wait for our guests to come on board, I want to welcome my sister Linda to greet you and basically give us a little bit of an introduction of what we are going to handle today. My name is Kato Mukasa from Uganda, and with you tonight is Linda Tilly from South Africa. Linda, you are welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Thanks for tuning in tonight. My name is Linda. I'm involved with human rights and the humanist communities in my two main countries that I work in, Nigeria and Uganda, and within the humanist schools in Uganda. And of course, over the years, I've become very aware of issues in both countries to do with especially political issues and human rights abuses. That's how Kata and I met. And I am Zimbabwean. I've lived most of my life in East Africa and Tanzania, and I'm now living in South Africa. Most of my family were all born in Zambia. Zambia and Zimbabwe used to be one area. So I consider the people of Zambia and the people of Zimbabwe as being my people. So of course it has been sad to see over the years what has been happening in both of those countries. And we have Fidelis Ngoma tonight from Zambia joining us. And he has been on our show before. And we're just very interested to hear some updates about what's happening in the country. Hi there. And then also we've had Emmanuel Mambu on the show as well from Sierra Leone. In fact, he was with us when they had the awful protest and all the killings just recently. Time flies. I think that was on the 10th of August this year. He was actually in hiding while the police were going around from home to home looking for people who had taken part in the protest to actually take him, as our military governments do after protests, arrest, kill, torture, and people just disappear. And I do remember he was living in fear at the time. And some tragic events have happened and unfolded since then. I've also been receiving videos of military brutality in Zambia with abuse and torture of everyday citizens off the streets in Zambia, which have also been quite distressing to see. We see this trend happening in many of our countries now. But I see that we have just joined. We have from us, that is Fidelis on the line. He's just joining us now. So I think we should go over to him in case we lose reception. You know how it is with the patchy reception.
Yes. Welcome on board. Thank you, Linda. Welcome on board with us, Ngoma Fidelis from Zambia. Ngoma, you're welcome.
Welcome.
And as we said, Ngoma is an expert on human rights, governance, and democracy in Zambia, and is a political analyst as well. So Ngoma, you are welcome on set, and we'd like you to take us through what is happening right now in Zambia. What is the political situation right now? What is the human rights situation right now in Zambia? The first time we had you on set, Ngoma, you talked about a politician, the opposition leader, who was being incarcerated, a lady called Philly. I don't know whether she has been set free now, and we know you are into a phase of going to elections. We don't know what's happening in Zambia. Can you please briefly take us through what is right now happening in Zambia, the status of democracy, electoral laws, and human rights in Zambia? Ngoma, welcome, please. I can't hear you.
Hello. I'm humbled, my brother, with my sister there in Zimbabwe. I want to raise my few issues, and I want to thank this platform, actually. This platform is a beautiful platform, actually, for Africa. It's only a pity that we have to beautify it, actually, because there are some media networks that this platform does not allow in other countries, because network is big, but in other countries we can use other Zoom and what, and I hope in later years to come, in months to come, your executive will look into my issue to say in under Zoom we can able to discuss those matters that our privilege matters as it is. I will talk about Zambia in my country. Good evening, my brother in UK, and good evening, my brother in exile, my sister in exile. I know you're in South Africa, you're Zimbabwean, whom Emerson Mnangagwa would be proud actually to listen to say you have our sister. I don't know whether McDonald Chipenzi would join me. I expected McDonald Chipenzi to join me because McDonald Chipenzi has been accused actually by some sections of society in my country, Zambia, that is one of them, that because him and the president come from their same province. Because in Zambia, what we have is regional tribalism to do matters to do with the state, actually, to make decisions of what is best for Zambia. And we had Kenneth David Kaunda had warned the people of Zambia that he had fears on President Hakainde Hichilema that was a divider who would divide the country. There's a video clip, which in few course I'll share with the admins of this platform. Kaunda had shared with us to do with the what he feared. In Zambia, we have a problem. In Zambia, we have the Human Rights Commission, which by constitution is mandated to conduct independently without the state, without anybody to interfere. But what we have seen in electoral laws in Zambia is that we have a situation where our roles as a continent are threatened because Zambia is a...
Yes, we have lost Ngoma. We know the network can be very challenging in many parts of Africa, but I think we shall be having him again. Ngoma just told us that our guest tonight, another guest, Chipenzi McDonald, is having some challenges in his country. And when I talked with him about 20 minutes ago, he was telling me he was on the road driving, getting out of the city, but he had promised to get on set. So we hope that we shall be able to get Chipenzi on set. Tilly, you have had a brief from Ngoma. Ngoma was talking about Zambia, and I know you were Zambian by extension too, because you are a neighbor to Zambia. You can take us through what you know about Zambia as we wait for Ngoma to come on board.
Yes, sure. Well, we know that Zambia is known for its copper, Zambian copper. It's our biggest copper producer. We have a copper belt area that's well known in Zambia, and everybody is after Zambia's copper. Of course, we know we celebrated, I'm saying celebrated, the lives of many, many Zimbabweans that were lost years ago in Zambia, freedom fighters and women and children, women especially who were being trained for combat against the British regime that ruled the country then known as Rhodesia, Zimbabwe today, and how the people went in the Salute Scouts and the Rhodesian Air Force that are still today hailed as heroes. They went into Zambia and they just bombed these camps out, and there were thousands of lives lost. A very tragic part of our history in Zambia, Zimbabwe, that I think it's very important that we all mark these memorials in each of our countries, because we tend to forget about them, and we tend to forget, because time passes, that these people who lost their lives so long ago, part of what they did was to ensure freedom for all of us one day, and we should never forget them. And I do believe that each of our countries who have these atrocities, like we spoke about Biafra in Nigeria a few weeks ago, we need to start commemorating these anniversaries, and we need to start publicizing what has happened. We know that so much of our history has been lied about, and I think our current history, we have an obligation to speak truthfully about it. Mambu's back with us now. He was just talking about the Human Rights Commission in Zambia and how they have issues with the Human Rights Commission, that is not supposed to be, as all human rights people and commissions and organizations are not supposed to be influenced by government or religious leaders. We see this happening, I know, even in Uganda, where we've had issues with human rights commissions that are put in place, and in Nigeria too, where they're not doing what they're supposed to do because they are influenced by the government. That's just where we left off, and I see that Fidelis, you are back with us now, so you can continue telling us about the Human Rights Commission in Zambia. You were speaking about that.
Welcome, Fidelis. Back to you, Fidelis. Back to you. Welcome.
Just waiting for sound there. He was also talking about tribalism, which I think is something we also find in all of our countries as well.
I'm here.
There, he's here. Okay, he's back with us.
Hello.
Hi. We can hear you.
I'm from Zambia myself, as Ngoma Fidelis, as a guest member of the think tank for Africa. Oh my God! Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can the admins hear me?
Yes.
Can the admins hear me?
We can hear you.
We can hear you.
I'll do a note.
Go ahead. If you can hear me, go ahead and talk, Ngoma.
I must get a permanent note that I can use for this.
We can hear you.
Okay, can I go ahead?
Yes. We can hear you. Go ahead. Ngoma, just go ahead and speak. We can hear you loud and clear. We can hear you. Go ahead and speak.
Okay. I just want to say two things in my country, Zambia. You have talked about, when you talk about the governance matters, in the Republic of Zambia, the Electoral Commission of Zambia, in accordance with our constitution, is that the Republican president is supposed to appoint the chairperson and the vice chairperson, and the chief executive officer, who by law, the Constitution of Zambia protects them. But when President Ndagande, these positions have been suspended monitory, unacceptable behavior, people have been fired, people have lost their jobs, expired under the Zambian Electoral Commission of Zambia. The Zambian Electoral Commission of Zambia, under our constitution, it provides our laws how it's a pity that McDonald Chipenzi is not here, because I wanted him to be here. I wanted McDonald Chipenzi to be here because he's a governance expert. Okay, then I'll speak my mind then. Thank you very much. Okay. For me, what I'm saying is that His Excellency President Ndagande Chilema was elected President of the Republic of Zambia on 12th of August in 2021. And on 2015, actually 2016, on 15th of August, it was declared by the Electoral Commission of Zambia as the duly elected President of the Republic of Zambia, defeating the incumbent Patriotic Front PF Edgar Chagwarungu, who is a lawyer and who is also from the same university where President Ndagande Chilema had gone. And in some of us, because I was executive director of a Catholic institution, which I'm now, before I say anything, I am also executive director, where I received my VX the other day. I'm just laughing. Just to everybody. I received my VX the other day for an institution where I'm executive director, where the board has picked me up. Actually, my role is to be policy director of the Republic of Zambia. I'll talk about the Constitution of Zambia. The Constitution of Zambia provides in the Constitution itself that the Electoral Commission of Zambia, the Constitution gives them powers to conduct elections in a free and transparent manner, without fear or favor. But what we have seen is that His Excellency President Ndagande Chilema has fired people who are supposed to be chairpersons in accordance with our constitution law. So yesterday we had the by-elections in Kabushi constituency. Where His Excellency actually went to campaign there, despite the courts in Lusaka, in Zambia, having stopped those elections to say you cannot go ahead because there's a store of injunction in this one. But our sources actually within the institutions, because for me, even for this beautiful platform to feature me, it means I'm an institution on my own. I'll feature.
Okay, we've lost Ngoma there, and we've also lost Kata. Okay, so Fidelis Ngoma was just talking to us about the current situation in Zambia with the recently elected president. He was elected into power a year ago. That is Hakainde Hichilema. And there have been lots of things since he was very open about the fact when he was campaigning. One of the things he spoke out about are the huge numbers of Zambians languishing in prisons around Zambia with no trials, or some of them not even being charged yet, and how he really wanted to overcome that problem. Over a year later, we see Zambia sitting with exactly the same problems, and nothing has been done about it. once again, it's a case of people promising things as they are campaigning for presidency, but when it actually comes to them being elected into that position, a lot of the things that they had promised the public, they don't actually live up to the promises. They don't keep them. The case of Mambu Piri is quite well known. She was a Zambian opposition leader, former deputy secretary general of the opposition party, Patriotic Front. There was an incident involving a motorcade in 2017 between the two presidential parties, the current president and the previous president, where somebody was shot and killed. Unfortunately, herself and I think it was the driver of her vehicle or a bodyguard or someone who was with her have now just been arrested for murder all these years later under the new government regime, which in itself just, shows you it's definitely something odd going on if someone is only arrested in 2021 for something that happened in 2017, which happened to involve the person who is now the president of the country. So she was arrested on the 18th of February this year and is still actually imprisoned, and she had a lot of issues with delays in the court system as well. And it's obviously against all human rights to hold somebody for so long without the proper due process being followed and the legal system being kicked into action. And this is what's happening all over. Zambia is particularly bad reputation for this. Thousands and thousands of mostly innocent people languishing in Zambian prisons in the most horrific conditions, in the prisons which are very overcrowded, human rights abuses on a daily basis. And once again, we see the ineffectivity of the United Nations, who are supposed to uphold prisoners' rights and are supposed to enforce them in countries where they are not being upheld under the Mandela rules, also known as the Madiba Prison Act, which is the unofficial guide that is used by the United Nations International human rights laws for prisons, particularly in Africa, put in place by Nelson Mandela, the previous president of South Africa. So here again, we have a blatant case of human rights abuses under a new president. Is quite telling for those of us on the outside, where a person's priorities lie should always be with his people first and foremost. Our presidents work for us. We don't work for them. And if they are elected into positions where they are running a country, they need to live up to the position that they've been elected into. And one of the first things is setting human rights abuses right and overcoming those problems. And in a year, as we see with Mambu Piri, nothing has actually been done. And she is just an example of one of many people, because she has a platform and she's well known. There's a lot of been written about her, and in the media. But the unfortunate thing is that there are thousands and thousands of people, men and women, in Zambian prisons, and indeed in all our prisons around Africa, who have no one to speak for them, and they do not have the money and finances and connections to get an international audience. And those are the people that I know we particularly, as a think tank group, are concerned about in our call to activism that we do. I have to always have a cat join to say hello. Kato, are you back?
Yeah, I can see you have your guests as usual. You have your roommates moving around.
Yes.
Yeah, I am back. I'm back. I had to fix my mic, but I'm back, and I think I'm better. Mambu is on set. Is waiting to be admitted.
Great.
And Ngoma is on set. So we are going to be welcoming them to take on from where they left off. So, Linda, we are talking about democracy, electoral laws, and human rights status in Africa tonight, and we are looking at Zambia and Sierra Leone. Of course, we know that in the last 2 months, we have had lots of shootings in Sierra Leone. People have been killed because of protests against increases in prices of goods. There's a lot of inflation worldwide, and leaders are expected to act accordingly. We also know that in Sierra Leone still, they are having grassroots elections. And there's a lot of politicking going around, and people are actively involved in governance and democratic processes that may help them to have the best leaders they want. So we look at these things. We look at Zambia, as you have said, the confusion in Zambia. I've been following Zambia recently, and the situation there is alarming. Of course, homophobia is on the increase in Zambia. Linda, you as an activist who defends the LGBTI fraternity may be shocked to know that actually a lot of homophobia is going on in Zambia, just as it is in the rest of Africa. But also we know that politicians, especially those who contest against the incumbents, face problems in many African countries. And of course, Zambia and Sierra Leone are not exception in this regard. Of course, I talked about Mambu, I talked about Phil, the opposition leader in Zambia, being incarcerated because she is challenging the incumbent at the moment. And of course, I've been following it, where she was even denied bail. And, you know, we find it very strange that a person who was in the opposition for so many years, like the president of Zambia right now, was in opposition for so many years, basically was incarcerated. We would hope that you would take a different path of not treating the opposition the way it was treated. I mean, you would find it not good to treat dissent with an iron hand. But again, we are seeing it happening in Zambia. So the case of human rights, electoral laws, and democracy in Africa is still alarming, as we see these things occurring year in and year out. We have talked about Sierra Leone, and we talked about a president whose wife was on a party abroad, I think it was the US, and she publicly said that her husband is having a PhD in coups. You know, therefore, no one can actually remove the husband, because in terms of making coups and sustaining coups, he has a PhD. I mean, you see the arrogance of the leaders we have in Africa, who are actually happy to talk about their strength in using the army to keep them in office. So we see all the things happening in our midst in Africa, and we want to find out, why are we on this deadly path, and how can we get on the right path? How do we get our governments to work for us? How do we get our politicians respect democracy, respect electoral laws, respect human rights for their people? You know, how do we protect the vulnerable? We have been talking about the poor. We have been talking about the women. We have been talking about the LGBTI in these countries. We have been talking about the right to protest and actively come out and challenge a law that is bad. And we see that these things keep on eluding us in Africa. So Linda, you as a person who has the figures, the statistics, the graphics, the hands-on data from these two countries, I want to invite you to continue elucidating on this very topic. Linda, over to you.
Thanks, Kata. Yes. Let me talk a little bit about Sierra Leone now, because I've just touched on Zambia. Sierra Leone is a country that we don't connect with much, but it's so wonderful that this year, with the platform that we have with the think tank group, we have connected with Sierra Leone, and we have really come to know what's going on in their country. And it's very sad to see that similar things are happening in so many other countries that we are now getting involved with, and hearing about incidents that are happening there that are mirror copies of what's happening in other countries. I think the general thing that we see is that our countries, we call them governments and military and police, but we are run by ex-military leaders. Most of us, all our presidents, our dictator presidents are quite old they all had notorious backgrounds from time spent in the military during our fight for independence and other issues, civil wars and things. And they are the fact that our military and police, the majority of them, do not adhere to the laws, or they are not proper law enforcement. They intimidate, they abuse human rights all the time. They will kill people and do whatever, they absolutely not what you think it's a military and police, but it's actually a bunch really of criminal thugs that just do as they please, and they're allowed to do it by the government. So what we see in all these countries now too is that there are groups of people that band together and stand up, which is within their constitutional right, to protest against things like rising prices, bad governance, and police brutality. And we see that these protests are always end in a horrible, bloody manner where people are arrested, people are killed, and are always, in each and every one of our countries, we are then accused of trying to overthrow the governments, of causing a public disturbance, inciting aggression amongst the masses. These are all of us who stand together and we adhere to the rules with protests. The latest one that I see being used quite often when they just open fire on innocent protesters is that the protesters started firing on first and were armed and were aggressive, which is another one that's been used to almost justify the fact that they're killing innocent people. And this is what we see. I mean, I have seen it with my own eyes happen in places like Uganda, Nigeria, and now Sierra Leone on the 10th of August, where people are peacefully protesting. And especially leaders of opposition parties or outspoken writers or human rights activists, they are usually the ones that are taken to be silenced. And it sends a message out to everybody else. If you stand up against what the government is doing in the country, the same thing will happen to you. And this is very, very scary to see it happening in so many of our countries, because it's those good people that are standing up and protesting and just demanding a better life for themselves and their people. And we saw this on the 10th of August in Sierra Leone. It was a great tragedy which unfolded there. Live accounts of people being gunned down in cold blood even the day afterwards and their bodies taken away, which is something we see often as well in many countries. And then everything lied about and covered up by the press and the international press, not just it's just the propaganda that gets put out there. Now, Sierra Leone is the biggest exporter of iron in Africa. They are our iron powerhouse. 12.8 billion tons of iron ore lie underneath Sierra Leone soils. And they are China's biggest supplier of iron ore. 70% of China's iron ore comes from Sierra Leone. That is huge, really, really huge. We also have on account in Sierra Leone many abuses on record, human rights abuses of the Chinese with the exploitation of the Sierra Leone people as a labor force. And a very worrying trend which I've seen is these big companies coming in and they compromise the chiefs of tribal areas to ask the people to move off the land. The land is leased apparently, supposedly, to these big companies that are coming in and are mining on the land. The people are being put into what they call resettlements or villages that they set up for them, which I actually just call them what they are. They are concentration camps, that's just without the fences and that. And they are now having huge issues because they can't access water sources that they used to feed for the animals and grazing. And there's a concern with contaminated water in that because nobody monitors how the environment is being impacted from these mining companies that are just going in and taking whatever they like. It's supposedly leasing land from the people of Sierra Leone, but this is what they're doing on the land. And the people don't realize that if it's your land, those are your minerals, and they are basically giving up the rights to their minerals without even knowing it, and are living in dire poverty as a result. And this is something that I'm afraid is going to start happening in other countries, where people on land are being offered huge amounts of money to move off their land for a few years, and their land is going to be leased, and they are going to be receiving rental. And once again, they are offered huge amounts of money, which to our governments keep us oppressed and hungry and starved and uneducated and jobless, and then they come and offer us something like that. You can't blame people for taking it. Huge amounts of money, but it's like a band-aid over the issue, and then people realize as time goes by what they've lost, and the land is being completely destroyed, and the minerals are being just exploited as they are everywhere. Now, Emmanuel, who I have a lot of contact with behind the scenes, it keeps me up to date with what's going on there. Sierra Leone is a beautiful, beautiful country. It has the most incredible wildlife, insect life. It's got one of the deepest natural harbors in the world, which sadly it was used as a port area for the slave trade because of that reason. But it's got the most incredible marine life, and it's got bird life and everything. And if you speak to the average person in Sierra Leone, they would really love their country to become a top tourist destination and to just share it with people and take advantage of the beauty around them in the country. And they really don't like what's going on with all this mineral mining and the human rights abuses. And Emmanuel is amazing. I mean, he is working with some really tragic cases, and he is doing such good work there single-handedly despite everything that's going on. And it's just, it's shocking. After the events on the 10th of August, we saw their president, he's 50-year-old Julius Maada. Now, he was elected in 2018, the Sierra Leone People's Party. He after this event, how he was on, I think it was the BBC, just disputing everything that had happened and turning the whole story around as to the protests on the 10th of August, and how, it's just believed by the rest of the world. But we know what's actually going on there, and speaking to the people who were in hiding over that time, who were getting messages out to us at odd times of the day and night. We were keeping tabs with them to see that they were okay, because people like Mambu as well was under threat of being taken. And in fact, his brother was taken one night. As I was actually speaking to him, he had to stop speaking because his brother, he just got a message that his brother, who was in hiding, had been taken. And sadly, since that time, his brother was actually killed, which is very, very tragic. But that was just also something that happened very, very close to home to someone we knew, and it is sadly happening in all of our countries. And these people are not criminals. They are just people like you and I who are standing up for a better country for their people. Everyone is tired of living in poverty and seeing all the money earned off their minerals and the violence and the death every day. We are not naturally violent people. We are not violent people. This is the biggest misconception that the world has about Africa. We are not violent people. There are percentages who are, but it's not the majority of us. So we don't want to deal with conflict situations with violence. We don't want death. We don't want what it's made out that it's the only way that Africans know how to sort out their problems is with violence. It's the only way we know how. It's the only way they can get a message through to us. That is absolutely incorrect. We stand against violence. We don't want it on our continent anymore. We don't. So that is the situation in Sierra Leone at the moment, and it's pretty much what's happening in so many of our countries. And it's like I always say, democracy in Africa is just a 9-letter word. It's an illusion created. There's an illusion that's created of democracy. But on the ground, behind the scenes, it's something very, very different. In fact, I doubt that any of us know what true democracy is, because I don't think any of us have ever had it, or if we have, it's been short-lived. As you were just saying now about the bragging about having a PhD or whatever in coups, that's exactly it. And unfortunately, bloody military coups and takeovers are now touted as being revolutions, and brutal military dictators are calling themselves freedom fighters and things. And it's all just upside down, Kato, It's a very dire situation that we're in, and we just people need to start waking up and seeing it for what it is and standing together. Tribalism in our countries and religion in our countries splits all of us. We've got to unite. People within our own countries, people have also got to start learning that you can't just vote a political party into power out of loyalty because your parents did, or because they represent the same religion that you belong to, or they come from the same tribe as you. we are intelligent, forward-thinking people. You can no longer just vote for somebody on reasons like they're from your tribe or they're a Christian and you're a Christian. We have to start seeing the bigger picture here, because if we keep on doing what we are always doing, we are always going to have the situation that we've got now. We have to start thinking differently about the ways that we're actually doing things in each of our countries, uniting in our countries and then uniting with countries on our borders, and with the long-term goal of uniting as an African continent to stand collectively against the international wicked West, who are taking everything from us and leaving us as the begging bowl of the world, when in fact we are not the begging bowl of the world. We are the food producers of the world, and Africa's minerals are what keeps the Western world ticking over and what is giving them most of their wealth. And people just need to wake up to the facts.
You have said something very, very pertinent, Linda, there. We're talking about the economy of many African countries, and that's the reality, that much of the economy in Africa is in foreign hands. And I've been talking about this over and over, that when you talk about these resources, as we have mentioned them, in Sierra Leone, in Zambia, in Uganda, in Tanzania, in Kenya, mention these countries, in DRC, and ask yourself which companies own these resources and how much do the local people gain from their own resources. When you talk about Zambia, for example, the copper belt, the companies are largely owned by foreign investors. When you look at Zambia, I've been doing some more research, you will discover that the foreign investors are paid higher. The foreign workers in the mines are paid way higher wages and salaries than the local workers. Yet they are doing the same jobs. Yet the mines have been there for over 50, 60 years and running. Yet the Zambians themselves know how they can manage their own copper belt, their own mines. But when it comes to payments, when it comes to rewarding for good work, when it comes to salary, there is a disparity between what the foreign investors get or foreign workers get and what the local miners get. No, these are challenges that Africans are facing. When you look at Sierra Leone, you will find out that from the gold, the diamonds, and all that you have mentioned, who is in charge? These are companies from Western capitals that are in charge of these minerals. A local Sierra Leone is basically earning less than $1 a day. Yet, the country is wealthy. Yet, this country actually has a very small population if you compare it with other countries in Africa like Uganda.
Exactly.
Where we are over 45 million people. Sierra Leone is a very small country with a small population, which means that if these minerals were really working for the people, the poverty ratio, the gap between the rich and the poor would be so narrow. But what's happening right now in Sierra Leone is that you are looking at a president who lives a luxurious lifestyle, who goes to the Western capitals, who goes to France, who goes to the US to simply having fun, get holidays, and abuse the resources which are already put in foreign companies from foreign capitals that are running these mines, that are running these resources of many African countries. So how are we going to talk about human rights? When the right for survival, when the right to employment, when the right to equal opportunities is not given to the people. We're talking about mines in Zambia, and we're talking about Africans, we're talking about Black people being underpaid when they're doing exactly the same jobs other foreigners are doing. But they are being underpaid, and the government doesn't take deliberate steps to rectify that. Now, if you're talking about human rights, without talking about economic rights, without talking about equal opportunities for people, you and me, who are living in Africa, who have been in Africa, who have a stake in these resources, but cannot utilize them, then they are missing a point. So, to go back to your point, basically we need to start looking at the leadership that manages the resources, that actually does the laws that govern these countries. Because if you have the Chinese, as we have mentioned, and rightly so, owning many of the resources in Africa today, the Chinese are owning much land in Africa than yesterday. Today, the Chinese are giving Africans loans that will not be able to pay in the next 20 years. And Africans, especially the leaders, are getting them without thinking of the consequences. It's at the verge of being taken by the Chinese, because African presidents, African dictators, African parliamentarians have mortgaged our countries to the so-called investors without calculating the effects of these loans. Today we know that the World Bank and IMF basically have strangled Africa with their loans. There are so many bogus loans that we cannot pay. We know the effects of SAP, the structured investment policies, and how they have destroyed economies in Africa, where people have been driven out of their own employment because we have been told government cannot do business. Government doesn't need to have companies. Government cannot run the transport industry. Leave everything to the private investor, who happens to be foreign investors much of the time, or a few well-connected local politicians and investors who, again, exploit the masses. So if you're talking about a situation where people don't have rights to bargain on how to use their resources, who actually enters a contract with their governments, and the terms of these contracts being well known by the people, then we have a problem that human rights are not even respected when it comes to the economy. We have countries such as Uganda, where we don't even know the contracts which our dictators sign with the investors. We don't know
that's the concern.
The whereabouts about our oil in the Albertine region. We don't know about our gold. We don't know about our resources. The contracts that are signed are kept secret from the public. So when you talk about what the eye can see, we're talking about electoral laws that don't work in Africa. Yet, observers international are going to come and say the elections were free and fair. Yet we all know they have been rigged in one way or another. So when you have laws that stop on paper, laws that are selective, that one is excused and actually can mistreat the opponent, and during a campaign, and this incumbent has excessive powers that cannot be taken to court, or if it's taken to court, basically no one can win against these incumbents because they have practically subdued the court process, the judiciary. They are all cowards. They've been all bought in a way that the dictatorship in many of these African countries cannot serve justice. Then the democracy we get is a lukewarm kind of democracy. It's not democracy in the real sense. It's a democracy where we simply go to exercise our rights to vote. But the outcomes of this voting process is flawed. The process is flawed. So Sierra Leone is one exception gone wrong. That whenever we talk about Sierra Leone, we talk about an election that has been rigged completely. We talk about a country where people don't have a right to protest and say, look, can you fix the economy? Look, inflation is getting out of the window, and you are there enjoying life as the president. Can you fix these things? Look, we are a few million people in this country without jobs. Can you fix the economy and provide jobs to the people? So Sierra Leone falls under that kind of category. Zambia is no exception either. We're talking about a country where politicians that were in opposition yesterday, today are in power, and are doing exactly the same things they used to condemn when they were outside the political circles of the country. If a leader in Zambia can be able to incarcerate another opposition leader and even deny them bail, deny them a chance to be heard in court, then what democracy are we talking about in this country, where this person was in opposition for over 15 years, and then he goes into office and behaves in the same manner in which those he took over from behaved? So there is a challenge in Africa. If you're going to fix democracy, where do we look at and get the right example in there? Because even in Europe, everything is messed up. As you can see, we see democracy also getting distorted in many European cities, many European countries. Though there are good examples we can look at, but also we see that what we borrow from many of these countries may not help us. And also, when you look at electoral laws, which are good on paper, but you cannot respect, where we have incumbents going to campaign with all the powers of the presidency. And an incumbent is campaigning as a president with all the powers, with all the facilities. And an incumbent can use the office to actually beat up the opposition, kill the opponents, imprison them, and the incumbent goes unscathed, goes unpunished. Then we have a problem in Africa. Linda, over to you. Your analysis on your take on what you see happening in these countries and what you think we can do going forward.
Kato, you know, for me, it's all about the minerals, and we need to educate people, and people need to wake up and realize what's happening. And that those of us who speak to them about things, we're not conspiracy theorists or telling them, you know, weird things that aren't true. If people just look for the facts, they can find them. The fact is that if our countries were properly managed for the rights of the people and not for the rights of the governments that run them, who are no more than slaves to their slave masters in the West, who are taking everything from Africa, people would realize we do not need the West. We need to trade with them on our own terms. They need us more than we need them. We have enough resources here to be the food producer of the world. We should not be even looking to take loans from overseas organizations, because we have, I did a research recently on just the rare earth metals that were discovered in some of our African countries. During those years or so that we were all on COVID lockdown, a lot was discovered that has gone under the radar. We have some of the rarest, most valuable minerals in the world that everybody wants here in Africa. If you look at how much of the quantity of those minerals that are being mined and their value on an international market, the figures are absolutely mind-blowing. And then you take that specific country and you look at the poverty and the desperation in that country, things just don't add up. And I think people have become too complacent. I use South Africa as an example. We have an issue here at the moment with what they call the Zamas. It's the people going onto the mines and illegally mining. The problem is these people are not illegally mining. That is their land, their ancestral land. I've traced back most of the mines in South Africa were taken by that racist supremacist Cecil John Rhodes when he was here doing his bad business. They were then slowly changed through hands over the years. They are all owned now by Anglo Platinum De Beers. They have wonderful African names, most of them, that sound like it's run and managed, or they are. But if you look at the holding companies and you go through the business records and access databases, corporations when they were formed and that, it's all the UK, here in South Africa, that is. People have forgotten that when we all claim we were independent, we didn't get our land back. So cities and that have been built on land, tribal land, ancestral land. We never claimed back what was ours. And if you look at the UAE, for example, if you've ever traveled through the UAE or you've been there, it is like another world. It is so well run, so well organized, clean. It is literally, it's a culture shock as an African to spend time there, because it is like you're living in a surreal world and everything works. Now, we know we all have huge issues with the UAE, with human rights abuses and everything else, but I'm just talking about it from the UAE, once they realized that there was oil in that area, they all decided to form together, all the different countries there, and unite together, which is what we should have done in Africa, to protect their oil. And they have always traded on their terms, and they have taken what should be happening in our countries is that Africa should be we should be the most advanced continent in the world, first of all, just our size alone compared to, the whole of the UK fits into Uganda alone, but yet the UK has so much control over us. And what I'm saying is that we need to realize that if our governments were managing our mineral resources properly, a percentage of all the sale of our minerals should be going back into our countries. We should have beautiful road systems. We should have more than enough top-class schools, universities, medical facilities. Nobody in Africa should be without a home. No African should even know what hunger means, because each and every one of our country has untold wealth, and there is more and more being discovered every day. Who would ever have guessed that there would have been so much oil in Uganda, for example? We always tend to think of countries like Nigeria with the oil. There is oil in all of our countries. Now we even find in places like South Africa, they're drilling for oil in the oceans or the coastline. And people are not aware of it. People aren't aware of the minerals that we have, that the minerals that still have to be mined. And what is happening with these corrupt governments, which are all backed by the West, and our governments are, let me just keep my views to myself on that. But what I'm saying, well, you know my views, Kato, but they are flying over our countries with aircraft, with special equipment in that heat sensors, and I don't know what equipment they use. So you can have planes flying overhead, and they are scoping the entire country out. They've done this in Uganda. I actually think I sent you those reports. So you can have a look at a snapshot view of say, Uganda. I'll use that as an example because that's the one I went into. You can see where all the mineral deposits are. And you can see where like 90%, I think it's 85 or 90% of Uganda is rich in minerals everywhere. The percentage that they haven't been able to discover yet. But when you actually become aware of how wealthy we really are, people need to start standing up and asking questions and thinking about what's happening. We have got an abundance of land in Africa. We have got perfect weather if you take the continent as a whole. We've got the colder areas for growing products and crops that thrive in cold. We've got the hot areas. We've got an abundant supply of natural resources. We've got an able, experienced people who know how to farm the land and how to, we have so much unused land, and we are waiting for handouts of food from overseas and the United Nations and that. When we have got so much here, why are our governments not using the money to put back into developing our agriculture, to developing roads and infrastructures and refrigeration facilities and seeds and fertilizers for the people? Because the West keeps us reliant on food aid, and it's a vicious circle. We feel that we are indebted to the West. We need the West. We can't do it without them. Now we've got China coming in. China are building we are China putting most of their infrastructure, their help to us. Harbors, ports, roads, railways, airports in every single country. They are developing trade routes for themselves so that they can get all our minerals off the continent. And they are loaning us this money, which the governments are taking loans that we don't even know about. They are selling our souls to the devil and signing us off without us being aware of what's going on. We are kept suppressed. We are kept on a downtrodden education system so that we don't ever start thinking and questioning for ourselves. And the biggest, most dangerous thing that has ever happened on our continent is the introduction of the Western and Eastern religions. This is the biggest slave over people's minds. It is the most damaging thing that has ever happened to our continent. Religion has destroyed this continent. And what's happening now is that we use religion against each other. It's in all our governments and it's in all our schools. It was introduced here by the Eastern and Western slave masters. It was reinforced by the colonialists and the missionaries. It was used as a tool of oppression and control and to cause us to turn away from our original African roots and who we are as people, our cultural and ancestral beliefs. If I could just get people to see religion for what it was, that would be half our problem solved. Once people start realizing things like evolution and that we are the cradle of humankind, that the black race is the original race, the most advanced civilization in the world, and that it was black Africans who discovered all the other continents. It was black Africans who developed the language that we all speak today, that taught the world so many things that they've claimed as their own, that they've invented in that. If it wasn't for Africa, the rest of the world would not have been where it is today. People need to stop believing this nonsense that they taught from the minute they're born and start seeing it for what it is. And it's us who are the conspiracy theorists and are the ones that are hated before, but it's factual evidence what's happened. And if you start believing in science and trusting science, you can see the answers there for yourself. I think there could just be a huge awakening if people could see it for what it is, but they are blinded by religion. And you see it in countries that are very wealthy, that have a lot with the West and the East, one like Nigeria, how it's getting worse, and there are more extreme forms of it coming into play now with our witchcraft and cultism and money rituals and all that kind of thing. So to cut a long story short, I would say that we have to start at the basics. For me, personally, we have to make people see that they are still slaves. We are still African slaves, and our slave masters, religion. And the chains that hold us are still there. They are just the chains of the Bible and the religious teachings. And I think it's actually a shame. And I think our ancestors are very, very sad and disappointed. And I think that we really need to start making things right, because religion, funnily enough, if you want to think of it, is the root cause of the fact that we are starving and unemployed and dying and suffering today. It's all religion. That's my opinion.
Thank you so much. I think that's beautiful analysis there. And I do agree with you entirely, but I want to add just on what you said, that the challenges facing Africa are multiple, but also
yes.
historical. They're multi-faced, you know. We have a challenge with the education system, which doesn't teach people to think, but to cram answers and regurgitate them and have high scores without being creative. So when you have such an education system, which basically doesn't teach you your history, but teaches other people's history, which doesn't teach you how your ancestors made a contribution towards civilization, but teaches everything about the West and other parts of the world, but neglects to teach you what is within your face. It doesn't teach you about minerals and how to utilize them. It doesn't teach you about your land. It doesn't teach you about your culture. It doesn't teach you about your religion, what your ancestors actually did to be better people, but teaches you everything about the West. It teaches you a civilization you will never basically understand. It doesn't teach people to be proud of themselves. Linda, you were born in Africa, you have grown in Africa, you know what I'm talking about. The fact is that our educational system praises the Western kind of style and demonizes the African way of life. Our education system will not talk about Kemet and the civilization Africa gave to the rest of the world. It will not talk about that. It will talk about how the rest of the world brought civilization to Africa. Yet, when you talk about history, basically people in Africa, so many years ago, took civilization to the rest of the world. They were farmers,
yes, absolutely.
Rivers and lakes. They were cattle keepers. They had clothes. They had medicines. They had houses, not caves. Long before the imperialists and colonizers came to take over Africa. The other day, I was talking about Uganda, where the cesarean section was being done before it was perfected in UK and the rest of Europe.
It was perfected in Uganda as well.
Yes, it was being done in Uganda.
Exactly.
Cesarean section where mothers would deliver babies through a cesarean section and they are using their knives and whatever in a proper way that they couldn't lose a life. They could save the mother, they could save the child before it was done properly in the West. The people in Uganda, the Banyoro and the Baganda, were doing that. But when they are teaching you the history of medicine, they don't talk about people basically who did the best within Africa. We are talking about ships, talking about boats and all that, agriculture. They will not talk about how people in Africa basically did farming better. And actually how they taught the rest of the world that they were able to exchange ideas and develop together. So when you teach people that they are less good, that nothing good comes from them, what you do, basically you lower their self-esteem. Linda, you and me know how much my sisters in Africa don't want this black skin.
Exactly. It's a very thing that I'm very outspoken about. Yeah, it's terrible. They just look like they're Western slave mistresses, and the men are so unhappy. Our men are suffering. I mean,
yes,
terrible.
Yes. You know why?
Yes,
because systematically over the years, the black child has been told that he or she is not good enough. And intentionally so, that he must look to the rest of the world to solve their problems. When they get a God, they got a Jesus. And white paint the Jesus, even when he's from the Middle East, where he's supposed to be brown. They make him look white. They pick a man somewhere and paint that man white, and then they give you a Jesus. And they tell you, worship this, and all your problems will be gone. So psychologically, a black child is taught to self-hate. They don't see value in themselves. That's why our politicians are looking forward to investing their monies abroad. They are looking forward to buying properties abroad. And when I say abroad, US, UK, Western countries, Western capitals. They are happy to let their countries fall into debt. They are happy to have wars in their countries and instabilities, as long as they have a secure haven for them to go in the other part of the world. So, Linda, when you have a people that hate themselves, a people that don't have confidence on who they are. People who don't know their own history, a crisis. People we have in Africa, many of them have what we call an identity crisis. They have inferiority complex. But even when we talk about these things today, me and you, they take us as the enemy. They think basically we are wrong to tell them that, look, you have been told a lie about Jesus Christ. Look, you have been told a lie about civilization. Look, your ancestors were doing even much better than what these people offered you. Look, the education system is flawed. There's no reason, Linda, why my child must be at school at 6 o'clock in the morning and then leave school at 7 in the evening. 7 p.m. Go to school at 7 p.m. you are leaving, and then they have even what we call preps. A child is in school about 10 hours of his day, of her day. They come home with homework.
Yeah.
In the UK, children go to school at 9. They go to school at 9, and by 4, I think 3 o'clock, classes are over. And I've been saying this, and I'm wondering, what are we teaching our children that we are burdening them with so many hours of studying nonsense? They are cramming work, they are regurgitating. A child who is able to produce back what you have taught him or her is the best, but he or she knows nothing. They are not creative at all.
It's just parrot fashion, repetition.
They cannot add value. Because it's garbage in, garbage out. Because the system that the colonialists left was to learn how to read and write, learn how to dispense medicine, learn how to be administrators, be people who can be used to say, do this and do that, but not to think how to do it better. So such education system drafts people's reasoning. Such education system brings out job seekers than job creators. Chinese don't need this kind of education. They rejected it. Japanese rejected it. And they went for what works for them. They teach hands-on. Why should a child in Africa with minerals don't study about minerals?
Exactly.
Don't study out how to excavate minerals in their schools. Don't study how to use minerals, how to turn gold into a finished product, how to turn copper into a finished product, how to turn coffee into a finished product, how to turn cotton into a cloth, because they have these resources. Why don't you teach them about their land, about their minerals, about their wildlife? Because they have these resources. Why do you teach them about the Tennessee Valley? Things in Europe that don't concern them. Why do you teach about Europe than teaching about Africa, about the resources they have and how to utilize them? Why do we have doctors who cannot do anything creative apart from passing on the same knowledge they've been taught? They can't make a tablet. They can't invent anything constructive apart from repeating the same process they've been taught. So you have containers of knowledge that simply regurgitate and pass over what they have been taught. Not creators, not people add value. Yesterday I was talking with a friend in the UK, how Japan managed to reinvent herself from the World War II, when Japan was defeated and made poor. The Japanese simply sent their best students to Europe. And then they encouraged them to Europe and America, and they encouraged them to come back and invest in Japan, but also use the technology they learned in the rest of the world and improve it. Today they make the best automobiles that 90% of the cars in Uganda or in Africa are Japanese cars. Why? Because they learned from the rest of the world, came back home in Japan, and improved on what they had learned. So, unless people in Africa know that the education we have is bogus, that actually dwarfs creativity, that wasting time on the regions that don't concern us is a tool that is meant to suppress your reasoning capacity, to keep you fighting each other, that our presidents, that our politicians are brainwashed, that actually they work for the interest of the visitors, not the interest of the public. Politicians are money hungry. Politicians enjoy the safe havens given to them in Europe and the US and East. So they are not working for the interest of the people. The education system is controlled by companies somewhere in Europe. Companies that set us a syllabus to follow. So when you have a syllabus that does not teach about what you have and how to use what you have, but teaches you about theories of other countries, histories of other people, without mastering your own history, without mastering how to use your own resources, without building your self-esteem, knowing that your ancestors actually did better things, giving you the basis to think that you can be something of value, without looking at a Jesus or a Muhammad somewhere, but looking within yourself and knowing that you can amount to something, then we are in a problem. When we have a people who are dying, working so hard to buy cosmetics and remove the black skin and then turn orange.
You know that men are even doing it now. Men are starting to bleach. Men are starting to bleach their skin.
I have so
I'm finished. Let me done.
I have so many male friends who are bleaching.
I can't. So, no, Kata.
People. Linda, conclude. When we have a people whose self is so lowered, people who are not creative, people who don't believe in themselves, people who are waiting for a savior who died over 2,000 years ago, a savior who couldn't save himself, a savior who was rejected by his own people. The Israelites are very strong today because they know they need to be practical, because they know they must fight off their enemies, not on knees, bending knees praying, but using technology, protecting their aerospace. These are people who are thinking forward, but we are looking at a person claiming to be part of them, but they are not even taking that person seriously. Jesus is a business. You can go to Israel and pour so much money into Israel. You can go to Saudi Arabia for pilgrimage, but Saudi Arabia is no longer that Islamic state we used to know. They are moving away from fundamentalism and thinking ahead. How do we utilize our oil? How do we move forward? But they are woodworking everyone to go there and pay money into a pilgrimage, which earns them billions of dollars each year. So, Linda, unless we understand that religion is a business as well as politics, that's why our education system is a sellout, is no longer working for us, that our politicians are bought, our politicians are capitalists working for foreign companies, that actually our politicians sustain foreign companies, not our own interests, then we are going to be moving forward. We need to build that self-awareness within our people, give them the energy to think creatively, to know how to utilize their land, to know how to turn around their resources and make them work for them, to avoid donating our resources to the rest of the world. Linda, today you know, me and you know that we give our minerals, our resources as raw materials to the rest of the world. And they sell us finished products at exorbitant prices. Why should that one be on and on for all these years? How do we turn the tide if we don't empower our people? Lastly, for those in diaspora running away because of political problems in our countries, we are victims. I'm a victim of this kind of situation. How are we helping our people back home? For those who are stable in these Western countries, in Eastern countries, how are we helping our people to learn newest technology so that they can improve on that. Why don't we copy from what Japan did 50 years ago to improve on their countries? Why don't we learn these good practices from other countries? Look at Singapore. What has Singapore done to be better? So we need to learn from the best practices and improve. But we need to know that, one, no one is going to come and save us, Linda. No one in the Western capitals is interested in saving us. They're interested in getting as much as they can from our countries. They're not interested in our politics until they know it serves them. They're not interested in our democracy unless it serves them. They're not interested in our welfare unless it benefits them. It's their interest first. Until we know that we are our own, that we must have our own act together, we shall not move forward. So our platform, rightly so, is encouraging people to think outside the box, to start working on the basics, to know that we can do a lot if we join hands, if we work in the interest of our people. Over to you, Linda.
Yes, I agree with everything you say there, Kato, and I know that this was one of the reasons that you wanted to start this channel initially, because it was when we were just discussing it, and I was saying to you the one day, is that I just wish that Black Africans could stop being so down on themselves and seeing themselves as being the dog's bodies of the world and believing that they are not as good, not as worthy, not as clever, not as capable. You are all that and so much more. It's just been told over the years that this is what you are. This is not what the Black people of Africa are. And it saddens me to see so many of our people who are dumbed down because of religion, when they have such brilliant brains and minds. And it's exactly what you say, Kato, is that we need to start raising the next generation of critical thinking African children that will go on to lead our continent forward one day. Critical thinking Africans that are educated in an African education system written by Africans for Africans, so that we are the ones that are creating the next generation of people that will go out there and solve Africa's problems. We can't solve Africa's problems when we are still so ruled by Western ideologies and the way that they do things. We are Africans, we are Africa, we are a completely unique continent, a completely unique continent of people. There is no other continent like ours in the world. There is no other race like the Black African race. Are just the most amazing people. And I say this as a white person who knows my own race and who knows the heart and the soul and the real, genuine kind of person. The Black race is far the superior race. And I just wish that people could see this and stop believing all the lies and just rise up and be proud of being an African and be proud of where you come from. And I honestly think that Black Africans, and the people that I know and the countries I've worked in, have a thing about history. How many Black historians are there? How many Black people do you know that go to all the historical monuments and museums and that in their own countries? And I understand it's a very painful part of history to actually confront. But once we start doing that, we have to. Once Black Africans start learning about the history that's being told about their countries, going and seeing the memorials and things that have been put up and what is actually in the museum, then you will start to realize and start to form a picture of what is really going on here. And then I think the understanding about religion comes into that, because once you realize who you really are as a Black African person, you'll understand why religion is so prevalent here still today. And I just think this is exactly what you say. Why should we run our countries, our continents on Western ideals? Even our judicial systems, our school systems, our everything. We've always done it better, and we were allowed, before we had control, we civilized the world. We were the leading continent. We were the most civilized with all I mean, even electricity, the first outdoor streetlights were in what is now Nigeria, the city of Benin. I mean, we had all these things, and we need to stop realizing that again and rising up to what we actually are. Okay, somebody joining us here. I'm not sure who it is.
We don't see you, Mambu or Chipenzi. We want to welcome you on board.
We have sound, sir.
We can't see you. We cannot see you. But please, if you can hear me, can you please switch on your camera?
I think it's Sierra Leone who we have. I'm just checking.
Yeah, but your camera is off, Mambu. I don't know whether you can hear me. The camera from Mambu is off. Dennis, can you please? Brian, Dennis, can you please help him get his camera on? Yeah. Linda, we are going to. Linda, as we wait for our guests to come, I know they have had so many challenges tonight, given the network challenges. You were speaking it rightly at why we started this platform. Basically, it's a think tank for all of you watching us. We want to create a difference in Africa. We want to build self-esteem among people in Africa. We want to create an education platform that can create awareness, people to know that basically they can do much if they focus on themselves, if they don't look outside for a savior. This is what we are telling people in Africa to think about. Do not wait for a savior, because a savior is not there. We are saying, be your own savior. We are saying, learn the resources, learn the minerals, learn everything about the land on which you are. Take charge of the resources you have. Negotiate better deals with the capitalists that are coming to have business with you. But also learn what is important. At the end of the day, what is important? How do you create your own food? What's important? How do you utilize what you have and sell it at a better price? What's important? How do we tap other markets as equal partners? What's important? How do we create a leadership that respects its people, that serves its people? How do we get our people out of poverty? How do we give confidence to our people? How do we turn our education system into a system that teaches people to be creative, to believe in themselves, not as pilots, copying everything as they're being taught, without being innovative, without improving on what they have learned? This is why we exist as a platform, as a think tank, because we think that when we teach people, when we share with people what we know, what we have learned elsewhere, then one by one, we are going to awaken people in Africa to start believing that they can do better, that actually they can take on the world, that actually they can be the masters of their own destiny. We don't need investors to come to Africa and dictate to us how to dig, how to utilize our lands, because we can utilize our lands, how to use our minerals, where to sell them, because we know what can be better for us. We need to awaken our people to serve their own interest first. Because, Linda, in my opinion, everyone, every politician, elsewhere in the world, wants to serve their interests first. So why don't we teach our politicians to think about the interests of their own people first?
Yeah, we've got Emmanuel.
To invest, what are the interests of our people? Manuel, Mambu.
Tell me drinks. Yes.
Emmanuel, we can see you.
Hi there.
Yes, how are you?
Good, and you?
We okay, Manuel?
I am good. I've tried so many times with my phone, but to no avail. So I took another phone just to be in.
Oh, thank you. Chairman, he's gone off there now.
If Mambu can hear us, we know the network. We know the network has been so terrible tonight, and we have had challenges of networks. We shall continue looking for the better solution to this. Linda, as we conclude, we may not be able to get our guest tonight because of internet and network issues. Linda, as we conclude, I'd like you to give us your parting shot for tonight. Basically, I'll talk about how do we take back Africa to the right course? How do we have the Africa we want to have? You have said it all. Now we need those parting shots from you. As we wait for Mambu may be able to succeed, but I think the network.
Yes, I'm back.
Really
hi, oh, we can see your beautiful nice sky behind you there.
Yeah, sure, I'm back.
We are behind you. Briefly take us through the situation in Sierra Leone. You can hear us. Tell us what's happened in Sierra Leone. Give us a brief about your country as it is right now.
Probably we said last time we are just done with the voters registration as we are running down to our elections in 2023. And of course, we all know about the violence in August 10. And recently, I think about 3 or 4 days ago, it just buried about 27 bodies, which were buried by the government. They were not handed over to the families for them to be buried because of, according to the government says because of security reasons. And presently we are at the lower elections now. We are planning, I mean, the government is, the political parties are on their lower level elections. What that means is that they are planning, the country, we have honorables, honorables are like members of parliament. We also have councillors, which covered words, and we have mayors and district council chairmen. And those elections are now going on like party level. So party level, like every party is trying to select a candidate which they will present on elections day that will stand in different locations for their party in various positions. But I can tell you clearly that violence are still going on from August 10th up till now. Arrests are still going on. People are still arresting opposition leaders, opposition members, that they orchestrated the protest. According to the government, and they said the protest was, they name it as a way to overthrow a sitting government, a democratically elected president, which to me is totally false. because people were protesting because of the high rate in the cost of living. And only day before yesterday, the government announced that another price have been added to the fuel. The fuel was 18,000 per liter, and now it's 20,000. So 2 more thousand have been added as of a day before yesterday. So, of course, the poor masses can't say anything. Rice was 250, and now it's getting to 600. So 350 is added in the Sierra Leone, which are 360. I mean, 650 or 600 is equivalent to something like $60 or so, 60 US dollar. So this is a price for a bag of rice now, and the rice is our staple food in Sierra Leone. And like I said, a lot of arrests, no human rights, no freedom of speech. This is presently what is going on in Australia. No freedom of speech. If you say anything, they will label you as a political being, that you are part of the opposition that is trying to fight the present sitting government. So if you say anything, this is just what you will do. Even your neighbors will like be pointed at you that you are part of the opposition. So we are just like that. But for us, we will say what is on our mind, because only the truth will set you free. If you don't say the truth, it means you are still in the dark. And we are also finding a way that we can also advocate for a non-violence in our elections, even though we are expecting a lot of violence, because now that there is no election and we are seeing a lot of violence in the country everywhere. So let's say when the elections come, what will happen? Because of the economic situation of the country now, every youth, I will say boldly that 70% of the youth are against the present government. But the government is using the military might, the police, and all to marginalize the poor masses. So we as human rights activists or civil society organizations are looking for fun how we can advocate, or in a way that will sensitize the community people that they will not engage in election violence, that they will use the ballot box to vent out their anger. So this is presently what is happening in Sierra Leone. I can statedly say that, boldly say that, Castle, there is no freedom of speech presently in Sierra Leone, and there is much of empty promises from the present government. Nothing actually is working as planned. Every day, price is going up. You see that the rich, only those who are connected to the government are getting what they are supposed to get. Those who are not connected are extremely suffering. You see that our minimum wage is 600. 600 is equivalent to something like $250. Yes, the $250 is around 600 to 700. So you will see that if someone will work for the whole of the month and he will only receive something like $100. No, it is. Let me say sorry. It's not $200. It's about $60. $60 US. So you see that somebody will work for a whole of the month and then he will be paid like $20 a month. So what do you expect that person to? How do you expect that person to live? You know, things are just go no better medical care, no good medical care, no medical facility. Everything is going down. No electricity. And then you see the president's wife is boasting. The last time she was boasting in America that her husband have a PhD in cook. And mind you, the president was a former military leader. He was head of state from 1996. He ruled for something like 3 months. He overthrew Strasser. They overthrew in 1996, and then he overthrew Strasser too. And then he handed over to President Ahmed Jankaba, who was the democratically elected president in 1996. So he has partaken in coups, not once, not twice. So the wife was boasting the last time in America that the husband has a PhD in coup. That she was just threatening the protesters that let them don't try what they did on August 10th. That the husband have ideas over what they were planning, and so like trying to strengthen the people that they should not try what they did August 10th. But I can tell you, Cato, Sierra Leone is not stable, and right now everyone is just trying to uh, like elections time. We'll just try to see our, like if you're here and then SLPP is a stronghold in the east. If you're SLPP, then you try to run to the east where your stronghold is, so that when the violence occurs, you will be protected there. But if you are in the west, let me say in the north where the APC is the stronghold of the APC, and then you are SLPP, definitely you'll be a dead man. So this is what is happening in Sierra Leone. Totally and entirely no freedom of speech. That is number one. Even the movement is somehow restricted as per party, because everything is politicized in Sierra Leone. You will say the fuel price is up. If you say that, you will be labeled that you are in the party B and you are trying to oppose the present government. And mind you, your life will be at stake at that moment. So it is only some of us who are like trying to sensitize people that this is not what we planned for, during our elections in 2018. But if it has come this way, then we'll try to see what we can do about it. Let us go back to the ballot box in 2023, early 2023, and try to see how we can try to vote out the present government. So let's try another person. And let me tell you, out of 100% of the voters registration that went on, I can certainly tell you that only 60% of people, the total population of Sierra Leone, registered. Reason being, people are tired. They say, I'm not going to vote, I'm not going to register, because even if I register, I vote, the elections are going to be rigged. So I don't want to waste my time to go and register. I don't want to waste my time to vote, because if I vote, even if I vote, my vote will not be counted. So the Western world is just going to come inside and then they'll select whoever they want to be our president. So 40% of the total population of Sierra Leone didn't register because of that perception that even if they register and vote, their votes will not be counted, because the election is going to be rigged. And this is what the president and his wife are always boasting of, that there's not going to be any runoff, that they are going to win the elections. And also the opposition also are also pressing. So we are foreseeing that there's going to be a lot of violence, a lot of killing, because the present government, the present president is forcing his way to the people, and also the opposition now being being carried by the heavy majority of the commerce or the Sierra Leone population is also forcing its way. So I am thinking in my own mind that if the president, the sitting president, they didn't win the election, is going to send the military on the Sierra Leonean population. And I'm also foreseeing that if they pronounce that the sitting government is the winner, then the opposition won't agree to that election. So there comes the violence on both sides. So this is what we presently are afraid of, and we are praying to God, and also as a civil society and as organizations, heads, or as human rights activists, we are also on our way sensitizing. Even though there is no fund, we are seeking for fund elsewhere just to support, move from place to places, because Sierra Leone is a little bit big. Even though our population is about 7 million or so, as per our census. And we are trying to see how we can sensitize our people not to partake in violence, for elections. But truly, we are foreseeing violence greatly. August 10 was nothing. Elections is gonna be like, wow. We are actually expecting a lot of violence because you will see that the present president, upon all his failure, promises and fail, he is trying to force his way on the people. And this is gonna be bad. This is actually gonna be bad. So for now, I can say, if you have any question, you can ask. But for now, I think that is what I can say. Hello?
Yeah, thank you so much, Mambu. That was
Thank you, Mambu.
Hearing from you. Thank you so much. If you can hear me, can you hear me?
Yes,
Mambu,
yes, I can.
Thank you so much for your contribution tonight. When is the next election in Sierra Leone? When is your next
Our election is going to be in June. In June. 2023, June.
June 2023. Okay.
Yes. But before and that, so there's going to be a lower level election.
The field is not
before that. Can you hear me, Katu?
We can hear you.
We can, yes.
Okay. Yes. June 2023 is going to be the presidential elections. But before June 2023, there's going to be a lower level elections. That is going to take like the mayor, the councillors, the parliamentarians, and also the chairman of the city councils before the presidential elections in June. And presently, there is also elections going on at party level. Like this political party, let me say party A, which is the APC, is presently on election, trying to select the candidate at the party level to represent them in the national elections. Also at the SLPP level, they are also on elections, on selecting their candidates that will represent them in the national elections. So this is presently what is going on.
Thank you so much, Mambu. We shall get you back. Mambu, we shall get you back in another interview. In the subsequent weeks, we shall get you back. We are going to let you go for now. Thank you so much for your contribution tonight. Thank you so much for your contribution. But I think we are going to organize and get you back, and then we talk more about Sierra Leone. Thank you so much for your contribution, Mambu, and keep safe. Okay. We shall be in touch with you.
Thank you.
Linda.
Thank you, Mambu.
Yeah, thank you so much. We shall be in touch with you.
Yes, we just covered, in your absence, I covered a lot about what happened in your country on the 10th of August. Hi, Kato, I'm back. Yeah, thanks for joining us. I know that you had a problem joining us tonight. It's been great, and we lost Zambia there as well. We've got a bit of Sierra Leone music going on there. I see you joining in the party with you guys tonight.
Happy.
Okay, there's a taste of Africa for you.
Linda,
right.
as we organize our studio back, as we get our studio back, I want to really thank you and guests for tonight. It has been a bit of a challenge getting them through, but I want to thank everyone who has joined us tonight. Of course, these are learning lessons. We shall keep on learning from one another and, of course, making every show better. We have thoughts of actually recording our guests once in a while so that in areas where they have poor networks, we can have them as recorded presentations, and then we can be able to have very smooth interactions. Linda, as we conclude, your parting shots, because I'm concluding right now. I think we have shot our time tonight, given the challenges in network. I want to conclude my part tonight by saying that democracy in Africa is not yet at the level where we want it to be. Democracy basically is serving more of our dictators. Elections don't serve the people much of the time, but basically these elections serve the interest, the S class, and human rights don't precede these elections. There is no direct link between elections and human rights. Like once we have elections, your human rights situation will be better in Africa. We don't see that. Much of the time, we don't see improvements. You get one dictator out, another dictator in. The system is flawed. And as I said, we need to fix our belief system. We need to fix our self-esteem. We need to fix how to use what we have. Linda, it's a shame that in Africa today, we look to other countries to import food when we can be the food basket. So, in conclusion, there are many lessons we can learn moving forward. Over to you, Linda, and thank you so much for this show. And again, you're going to be closing it as we prepare for the next one in a week's time. Well done, Linda, and back to you.
Thank you so much for that. That was great that Mambu could actually join us, even though it was just towards the end. I think that what the good thing is with our platform is that we're starting to raise awareness of what's happening in other countries. And I know that this has just been a few months that we've been doing this and we've had an overwhelming response. I think the great thing is that we now start to learn what's happening from inside the country, a place like Sierra Leone and Zambia that we might not have had much connection with before. As we become more aware of issues that are happening around Africa, we realize that we do have the same problems. And if we've all got the same problems, we need to unite to fix those problems. I think that it's a good introduction to what's happening here. And those of you who are only watching for the first time tonight, to maybe go back through the list of shows on our channels and watch some of the previous shows that we've done where we've spoken to people from other countries. Because the idea for the channel is that we don't just talk about our problems in Africa, but we find solutions for them. And we find solutions are the best way to handle our problems as a continent collectively. Those countries of us that are now connecting through this platform, I think is about 12 or 14 of us countries now represented. We have some brilliant, brilliant people. If you put all the talents of those two countries together, from our human rights people to our writers, to our lawyers, to teachers, we have got such an incredible, diverse selection of people who all want to make a difference in Africa, and we can pull our resources together and work together. I'll end by saying tonight that the West is not coming to save Africa. Only we can save Africa. Only we can save each other, and only we can save ourselves. There is no supernatural being. There is no afterlife that is going to make up for all the horrors you've suffered during your life here on earth. This is our only life. We have to make the most of it. People who believe in heaven and hell, I'm telling you, there is a hell. Our hell is our life in Africa right now. And our heaven is also what we can achieve here in Africa. We've got to start working together, going back to our traditional beliefs, cultural ways of doing things, and know that the old ways are the good ways. We need to start going back to how we always were as people and uniting together to save each other and to save our Africa. Nobody is going to do it for us. Nobody can have the passion and the love for a continent that is not their own, that they weren't born onto. that aren't their own people. You can't expect anybody else, especially not a supernatural being, to swoop in here and sort out our issues. It's not going to happen. So we need to start uniting, and we need to find ways through this platform to start bringing people together. And I think that's just the best message that I could end with tonight, Kato. So thank you to everyone who's watching us across Africa and from around the world tonight as well. And I know most of our viewership is after the show's aired and in the week after that. Please interact with us on our platform, the Call to Access Africa channel on Facebook. Send us a message. You're welcome to send Kato or myself a message on our private Facebook Messenger if you'd like to be included on the upcoming show, if you have a topic which you'd like us to cover, or if you'd like to join our behind the scenes WhatsApp group where we do screen people, obviously, because we don't want to just have every Tom, Dick and Harry on there. I just want to also say thank you to our production team that run between Uganda and Kenya, two of our countries in East Africa. To Brian and to Dennis as well, who do the most amazing job behind the scenes. And most of the work that you see when you watch the show, it's all done behind the scenes by these guys during the week. And we love you guys and we appreciate that. And both our production crew love snakes, which kind of, we talk about snakes a lot, don't we, behind the scenes on our group too, Kato. Kato also is a great lover of snakes. He's going to come and meet all mine one day. So we're just ending off on that note. Thank you for watching, and remember the same time next week you can tune in, and if you'd like to join us on the show, please contact one of us. And just have a great week, everyone.
Thank you so much, Linda. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, our production crew, Dennis, Brian, Logan, and everyone behind the scenes means the important show possible. The guests tonight, we were great. Despite the challenges, we promised to work on the network issue and solve this challenge once and for all, and we make ensure that we have better studios and better recording going forward. Of course, as we have said, the solution for Africa is unity and awareness. Unity and awareness, and also knowing that no one is going to save us but ourselves. We are going to save ourselves. No one else is going to do it for you. It's you to fix your own challenges, because no one out there is ready to save you. You save yourself. Thank you so much, Linda, and thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Such a nice audience. Meet you again. Catch you next Saturday. See you again. Bye-bye.
Bye.